Assalamualaikum, my dear students. I hope all of you are fine and doing well. So, topic here we will discuss today it is about the non-metals. Basically, when we talk about the non-metals, they are forming the negative ions. The negative ions mean they are making up the anions by the process of gaining of the electrons. So, when any element of the periodic table or any atom of an element just gain the electrons. After the gaining of the electrons, it will carry the charge, which is the negative charge, and after the carrying negative charge, it will make up the anions. So basically, the non-metals are involved in the process of making up of the anions. And here we have a lot of examples of the non-metals, like we have the carbon, we have the sulfur, and we have the red phosphorus. The symbol for the carbon that we can use it's capital C, and for the sulfur, we can use the capital S, and for the red phosphorus, we can use the capital P. So both these three elements of elements of the periodic table are basically non-metals, and they have the property to lose the electrons, not like metals, but they have the property to gain the electrons, and their gaining of the process is the character which is known as their electronegative character. So the non-metals are basically electronegative in nature because they can gain the electrons and they can carry the charge, which is the negative charge. And by gaining the electrons and acquiring the negative charge, in turn they will form the anions. So when we want to add up an electron into the valence shell of an isolated gaseous atom, in turn there the release of energy, that energy which is released when we adds up an electron into the valence shell, this released energy is basically known as the electron affinity. So the released energy is known as electron affinity, means the how much energy is going to be released in this process, it depends upon the strength of an atom. So the anion formation is basically the process done by the simple non-metals. Now we will just learn about the simple properties of the non-metals. Here the oxides of the non-metals. Non-metals basically changes into the oxides. Now how do they form the oxides? They form simple oxides by the reaction of the oxygen with non-metals. Non-metals are reacting with the oxygen, they make the oxides. Now, there we have carbon dioxide. The oxide of sulfur is sulfur dioxide, which is SO2, and the oxide of nitrogen is NO2, which is nitrogen dioxide. Now, here, when they get dissolved in the water, they produces the specific type of acids. So that's why the oxides of known metals are basically acidic in nature. And the simple answer for this question is this, because they produces acids when they get dissolved in water. Likewise, when carbon dioxide get dissolved in water, it produces the type of acid which is called as carbonic acid. On the other hand, when sulfur dioxide combines with the water, it produces sulfuric acid. Its formula is H2SO4. And when nitrogen dioxide combines with the water, it produces the acid which is HNO3. And the name of this acid is nitric acid. So the oxides of the nonmetals are basically acidic in nature. And when we move from left to right in the periodic table, the acidic character increases. And the simple answer is this, because the non-metallic character also increases. Here we have another question, that why do the non-metals gain the electrons? Because they have to gain stability. By gaining the electrons, they changes into the specific type of anions, and they have to get their valence shell electronic configuration according to the noble metals. When they get their electronic configuration according to noble metals, in turn they will form the anions and they gain their stability. Then we have some properties of the non-metallic or character, or this is also the character of non-metals to gain the electrons. Here we have example in which the chlorine, as it belongs to group 7a, it is known as the halogen. As it is a halogen, belongs to group 7a, so it contains 7 electrons in its valence shell. Now the noble gas electronic configuration is to acquire 8 electrons. To get this stability, it gains 1 electron and changes into the anion and will carry the charge negative. So here we have chlorine. By gaining 1 electron, it will carry the charge chlorine minus 1. On the other hand, here we have oxygen. It belongs to group 6A. It contains 6 electrons in its valence shell, so it requires just 2 more electrons to complete its octet. By gaining 2 electrons, it will acquire the charge -2 and changes into the anion. We can also have a simple picture of the oxygen, in which in the center we have oxygen, and around it we have its first shell. This is its second shell, which is having 6 electrons. Now, by gaining 2 more electrons, after gaining these electrons, now its electronic configuration becomes as oxygen. First shell already having 2 electrons. The last one shell was having 6 electrons, and now it gained just 2 more electrons, and it will be changes into the negative anion and carries a charge -2. So this is the oxygen -2, and this is the oxygen atom. So this is the non-metallic character in which they gain the electrons and changes into the anions. Then we have some physical properties of the non-metals here. The first one is property they can be changes into the anions, means they form the negatively charged ions, and they are basically dull, colorless to colorful. They may be colorless or colorful. They are poor conductors of heat as well as poor conductors of electricity. They are brittle. Brittle means their layers can slide over one another. They have low melting points. They are often in the form of liquids or gases at the room temperature, and the one property in which they are called as non-sonorous. Non-sonorous are the substances that do not produce the sound or the ringing when they get stuck with any substance. Like we have also an example of wood, that it do not produce any sound like a non-metal. So wood and non-metals are same in nature. So this was all about today's lecture. I hope you guys understand, and if you have any queries, you may ask me about that in the comment section, and I will get back to you guys soon. The next topic that we will discuss, it is the chemical properties of non-metals and their reactions. For that time, you guys keep learning and have a good day.